Game begin.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Spike Colony podcast, although maybe it should be called the Johnny Colony because I am here with a special guest host, the Crows and Tusker himself, Brian Kowal.
Hello, I'm here.
I'm your regular co-host, Laney Huang. I'm the Phyrexian Rager. Card Advantage is the name of the pod today. Mike is visiting his ancestral home of Cleveland to search for his lost Mox Diamonds. So
The quest for Mox Diamonds.
Yeah. Like right after he purchased 3. So perfect timing on his part. Big week in Premodern. The Premodern European Championships just concluded. Congratulations to Pablo Suarez for taking it all down. BK and I were in a voice chat watching some of the coverage. And so, I mean, my first question to you, BK, is do you bolt the bird?
Yeah, I think you'd. I mean, we were arguing about whether we should bolt the bird, and I was gonna run it back and try to figure out if that was if it does work out better for him if he doesn't. I bolt the bird. I think the just the way elf mana usually works out, at least when I'm playing elves, is like if you get that gas pedal of a single extra mana on turn 2, it just avalanches bigger. But I think what do you bolt the bird?
I don't bolt the bird. So for our listeners, the context is the win and in on coverage in game 1. Martin Berlin using the burn deck with notably fire bolts instead of other single mana red spells in the main up against Pablo Suarez, the elf master and eventual champion. Suarez opens up on Forest Llanowar Elf, and Martin immediately bolts that Llanowar Elf. The follow-up is Elf Symbiote, and Martin incinerates the symbiote. And I've been racking my brain trying to think about this play. I'm convinced that if your hand doesn't contain any creatures, because we know that it basically ran out that it was clear that he didn't have any Jackal Pup, and of course he didn't have Mog Fanatic, because I'd be really on board with Mog Fanatic targeting Elf. And your hand, yeah.
That's better, you think?
Yeah. The Mog, because if you think about it, the Mog is like your Mog. You're gonna be simple situation, right? I have a red creature with 1 power on the table, and my opponent has a 1 toughness blocker. If I bolt the blocker with a bolt and attack for 1, I'm like committed to using all my burn on creatures, right? Because I traded 3 damage for 1 damage. So the assumption is that my opponent's just never going to play a creature again, or else I just have to burn all of their creatures to get 1 damage each time. Whereas like if I Mog the blocker and then I either hang on to the bolt or just bolt the face, I'm being more damage efficient. So my belief is in a heuristic for your burn. If your burn hand doesn't present you with a controlling route, I mean, maybe there's an argument that Martin shouldn't keep a hand that doesn't have like Grim Lavamancer or Pup or, other good cards. So basically, my thesis is he opened up his hand. He's staring down a bunch of burn spells. He ended the game with 2 Fire Blasts in hand. And Pablo was at just enough life to hang on. He ended up having to, because on the pivotal turn, he had to Fire Blast a Well-Wisher, basically, to stay alive. So my whole thesis is that if you open up your hand and it's all burned, you can't outvalue a Survival of the Fittest unless you have a Grim Lavamancer, and you can't, and because of that, you can't just like point value spells, right? Like Lightning Bolt is the most efficient burn spell in your deck next to Fire Blast. You can't just be wasting that card economy because you draw 1 card per turn and the Elves player draws multiple cards per turn via Survival of the Fittest. And then finally, if you're Pablo, you're down to trade every Fyndhorn Elf and Llanowar Elf in your deck for a Lightning Bolt, right?
Are you? I don't know.
I'm pretty down because once the Survival's on the table, you have an unlimited supply.
We got to ask Pablo this. I think he'd have a lot to say on this subject. Okay, so by your rationale, okay, you said like you would want a pup in his opening hand, but isn't a pup just a even worse Mog Fanatic?
Well, a pup could conceivably get through with like so for instance, if you firebolt and then get in with pup, you're like equal. And then
Yeah,
also
you're not.
you conceivably, if you're just playing towards like a kill every creature, like a pup is a much more reasonable clock. You just need the pup to get in for you need the pup to convert for like 8 damage or so, which is like plausible. Um but
Mhm.
but like you're like in this exact situation, if I have like pup bolt, um then I'm actually considering just attacking with the pup to trade it for the elf and hanging on to the bolt, because that pup is very unlikely to convert for greater than 3 damage, and the bolt is always converts for 3 damage. And this is actually a very important thing that happened in game 3, where he ended the game with a lava dart in graveyard, or he on a pivotal turn he had 2 pups in play, a lava dart in graveyard, and a curse scroll on the battlefield with a live activation. And so he curse scroll to clear the way for his 2 pups to get in. And I would argue on that turn, you just send the pups and let it trade for the Straggler 1/1 and just hold up your Curse Scroll activation and your Lava Dart. Because at that point, you're not going to cash in more than 2 attacks out of this Jackal Pup. So you might as well just keep up your 2 damage at instant speed. And then obviously your opponent can blunder and just not block the Jackal Pup. I mean, Pablo wouldn't have.
Yeah, because he has to block.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because you want to use so this was the turn that he untapped and played Sharpshooter. You want to convert, you want to trade your pup for a creature at this point. Like at this point in the game, your opponent's at a low enough life total where like a creature is just very clunky, and a burn spell is very valuable. So I have more to say on that match. I don't know. Probably have to do like a YouTube video. I'm sure Mike has a lot of opinions. He like we have our like Discord call and we're like chatting, and the game wraps up and Mike phones me, and I'm like, I ignore the call. I'm just like, we're in a voice chat with me, you, and Fran and Tom Matelski. You just joined the voice chat, and he joins the voice chat, and he's like, I would have won from that position from Martin.
Yeah, I never would have lost any of those games.
Never lost. And then he just like explained what he would have. I was like, okay, well, what have you done differently? He's like, I don't know. I just would have won. I would have done everything differently. And I actually do think that you can win from Martin's position. And I think the moral of the story is that Burn is not a brain dead deck. I think that match made it like extremely evident how intense the decision making you have to do with Burn, because it's like a match that you win or lose based on your decisions. And of course, the Elves player has to play extremely well.
People still think Burn's a brain dead deck. I feel like that's been debunked enough times now.
I mean, I agree that it's been debunked, but I'm just like for the people in the back, right?
It's still not, yeah.
Yeah. Like never was, continues not to be. Meanwhile, we've kicked off the Fall Brawl. Your boy Lanny is 3-1 in the Fall Brawl. How are you doing in the Fall Brawl, BK?
I've only played 1 match so far, and I'm 0-1 currently.
Yep, tough beats for BK. We just finished our Fall Brawl match. We've actually played in the Fall Brawl and Spring Fling back to back now. So I won both times, but I'm not keeping track.
You're 0-2 versus Lanny. He's got my number.
BK, of course, like a gentleman, did not elect to choose a Lanny destroying deck because of some substituting. He substituted some spots.
If there even is such a thing.
I mean, I guess we'll just say I'm just going to out you, and Hoyp can decide what the punishment is. But you knew the matchups because you substituted somebody, and it didn't occur to you that we even had deck reg. But if you're out there and you haven't deck regged for the Fall Brawl and you're in the Fall Brawl, you do have to deck reg. There's a Google form in the Google Sheet. BK gets a pass. He subbed in for somebody. He's had a busy weekend. He's got life. He's running a sweet game shop that we all adore. Cut him some slack. Okay, so I don't want to see some hate mail heading BK's way.
This week was really rough, people. Especially rough. I won't talk about it. It's rare to talk about Magic.
Yeah. So I think.
Are we avoiding talking about what our decks are in the Fall Brawl?
We can talk about it. I mean, if you're down to leak, I'll leak my deck.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Okay, cool. I'm playing replenish. I'm just playing exact same 75 as my top 8 replenish list from the New York tournament. Deck is still good. Put
A
2.
little different.
A horrible, bad replenish. I don't know. 24 land. I'll put it this way: replenish with 24 lands. Put 2 copies into the top 8 of Euros. Replenish is a sweet deck, even if you don't make good choices. Like, you don't have to play Mox Diamond. I'm not going to force you to play Mox Diamond, but for crying out loud, play 26 lands. Play a Cephalid Coliseum. That land is a spell. Just do it. Thank me later. What are you playing?
Cephalid Coliseum?
Yeah, Cephalid Coliseum is my 26th land.
24th.
Oh,
you're up to 26. You're up to 26 lands.
Yeah, I'm playing 26.
Ooh,
like,
that's cool.
Basically, I understand. Like, cutting Careful Study from the deck was a cool. I guess we'll just do a quick replenish tech. So, players used to play Careful Study, or really just Michael J played Careful Study, and players would sometimes mix in. I had 2 Careful Study in my PSS list, and it became very clear very quickly that the Careful Studies are very awkward to cast on turn 1 if you need to hit a land drop, because you can cast your enchantments and you can replenish your enchantments. And based on your hand, you might not know if you want to keep enchantments in hand. So cards like Attunement, Intuition, and Frantic Search being, of course, 0 mana, and Instant Speed, allow you to like make your decision closer to your like let you collect as much information as you need before you go for anything. So if you like activate Attunement, like, you know, if you need to hold enchantments or pitch enchantments based on whether or not you are ready to replenish. So Careful Study is kind of bad, and then of course it sucks to go down. Like, it sucks to just mulligan via Careful Study just so that you can hit a land drop. Unless you have the whole shebang and you just like have a replenish and have soul lands, have everything you need. So anyways, Careful Study kind of awkward in the deck, but the deck is still full of 4 casting cost cards. So the like result is you need to cast those sometimes, and you get wastelanded sometimes. So yeah, highly suggest going up to 26, at least 25.
If you cast the turn 1 Careful Study, though, and you don't have lands, you're probably putting the ideal cards in your graveyard, though, because it's not like you're going to put lands in your graveyard, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying,
you're just going to be left with the business spells that are put your stuff together.
Well, sometimes you don't need to. You don't want to add it up. Like, so basically, like, if you're like game 1 in the dark, like if you're playing against a control deck, you would rather sequence by playing your enchantments and then playing replenish rather than just going for like a turn 3, turn 4 replenish. So that's my reasoning.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the BK deck.
The BK deck? Oh yeah, I'm playing Red Green Survival. It's basically just trying to go as hard on the madness end of survival as possible. Get lots of Root Wallas, Aerial Worms, and stuff into play, preferably with a Gaia's Cradle. Use that mana advantage and haste on the creatures to press the other deck.
And we're playing 0 Squee once again.
Yeah, still 0 Squee.
All right. Soapbox it for me. Why 0 Squee? You're killing me. You're killing us all.
Well, if you're a Madness Survival deck, and Cyberpunker, I hope you're listening to this. If you're a Madness Survival
Cyberpunker runs 4 Squee, bro. I
know he does. Well, I'll explain why he runs 4 Squee and why it's different. But if you have Survival in play, you're getting Squee, you're usually wrong. Because and this also is boosted by the fact that I play Gaia's Cradle, but if I always want to chain Root Wallas before I do any squeeze in my deck, because if I'm going for the engine to kill my opponent, I just want all the Root Wallas I can get into play, and then advance that into Arrogant Worms, or Masticores or something like that, and then like I'm trying to get all the mana I can into play and all the creatures I can into play, so my Cradles are the best, etc. So early, you just want the Madness creatures, because that's where your advantage is coming from your survival. That's why your survival is good in the deck, is because you are playing Madness creatures. And then later in the game, you would want that card advantage, but instead of that card, I have Genesis, which basically lets you rebuy any like good utility creatures that might be in the matchup, and also lets you bring back your madness creatures, which are again your best cards to use with your survival. So with survival, I don't need Squee. If I don't have survival, Squee is the worst card you can draw in your deck. It does absolutely nothing. I'd much rather draw Genesis there because Genesis is actual card advantage engine. So if I go Wild Mongrel, discard a Genesis, I just keep recycling creatures that die, and or even my Wild Mongrel back. So I don't know. That's my take on why I don't play Squee, because I just almost never come into a position where I actually want to have it.
Oh man, that makes you sound like a, dare I say, tempo player.
It is somewhat of a tempo. I don't know if this is
it's a tempo based argument, right?
Deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a tempo deck. I mean,
I don't think it's even
tempo.
I think it's more just going for your best lines of card advantage and efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting because conceivably, I mean, if you look, it's a super interesting. I love the point you make, because the big difference is like Squee. I would say like the opposite to this, right? Is Squee in a deck like Hermit Feb, where it's only about basically amassing, or sometimes it's you just need to go +1 card or +2 cards because you can get that extra mana source or get that extra combo piece. But and obviously people have been thinking about it as an auto include, but I guess if one creature is, all you need is one creature in hand and a Survival of the Fittest to turn into 4 Basking Root Walls in play, and you're playing a red-green deck, so you don't have infinite access to green mana. So fitting a Squee in there when you're already go get Anger first and then go get whatever is a little different story.
But the more green mana I have, the more I still don't want Squee.
Yeah.
Because then I'm putting even
at that point then you're just gonna do the Genesis thing, and then you're happy to Genesis. Because you're not you just don't have a combo. It's interesting. I mean, it's like
nope.
What would Elves do with
it's super
no
good
Squee?
against control? Here's the thing. I think that's the next thing I was going to say is I see people play survival decks all the time, and they go get Squee they just autopilot into getting the Squee right away.
Yeah.
And it's often wrong. Like they'll end a turn, discard a creature, get a Squee, and that's their last green mana.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Definitively bad play. And even if they get the Squee the first time, if they don't have a good, I don't know, Squeeze basically, if you have survival in play, it's a card. It's basically pay 1 green mana each turn.
Draw a card.
Yeah. So if you don't need to be doing that, which is often the case with Elves, I think. Like Elves, there's a lot of situations where I just never get the Squee and just kill them because I didn't spend time doing that, I just puke out everything that I need to win a lot faster. Because a lot of times with you just even have Wirewood Symbiote, Voltani's Acolyte, you're getting more than enough of your card advantage. Voltani's Acolyte also draws a card for 2 green. Right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was just kind of like, well, if by that logic, you can just say that with survival in play, Acolyte is good enough.
And if they kill your survival and you have an Acolyte and a Symbiote in play, you're still
you're a lot better shape.
Running train,
Well, food for thought. Honestly, I like the sound of it. I mean, obviously you don't have Root Wall and Elves, so it's different. Speaking of Elves, I'm going to force you to address the number one question for every red-green survival player. Is this deck a worse version of Elves?
I don't think it is. It doesn't lose as much against going after 1 toughness creatures as Elves does. And it also doesn't it's not susceptible to stuff like Engineered Plague as much as Elves is. There's been matchups where, because I think about this a lot when I play the deck, is if I was Elves, would I have won there? If I, and sometimes some games I win because I was not Elves. I definitely had matchups where it was I like my rock matchup, and when I play Elves, I don't like my rock matchup that much.
Yeah, I mean,
I know a lot of Elf players think they crush rock, but everybody does.
I mean, that's kind of about who your rock opponent is. If your rock opponent is Michael J, and he's on his way to the finals of the LobsterCon side event, then you're not in great shape. But if your opponent is Michael J and you're just like chilling at the testing table, you just always smash him with Elves.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if we've played the matchup too much. I think a lot of, I don't know. If Michael was here, he would probably be saying, yeah, I got this, because he sideboards. He's like all about his sideboard strat against Elves, where he takes out all the discard and just plays the control game, complete control game.
I feel like with all the rock builds I play, I never feel super worried playing against Elves. I don't know. I think if you play your plagues as like Elf sweeper spells, rather than a worship or whatever,
Yeah. Do you board out your discard though?
Yeah, I do, because like your answers are better than your discard a lot of the time. It depends like how much hate I have for Elves in my board. Like the less I have.
Let's assume 4 plague, and then you can board up to 4 naturalize plus 1 tranquil domain.
Yeah, then I'd probably.
And then random vendetta, smother, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because my attitude is that if you're like playing Tanglewire Elves, then you can like basically kill your opponent before they have access to 3 mana.
Yeah.
But that's if you have it all.
Tanglewire, yeah. Tanglewire, but a lot of people aren't even playing Tanglewire anymore, right?
Yeah, it's fallen out of favor. I got Tanglewired online recently. I think somebody got Tanglewired at. Wait, hold on. Let me just look.
It's definitely still played.
Yeah. Pablo List has 4 Tanglewire. So the god of Elves himself, Pablo Lanowar, says 4 Tanglewire.
All right. Well, we're not going to cross him.
Yeah,
because he's proven. If we can go back to Cyberpunker, just so he doesn't send me hate mail, I will say that his deck for Squee makes a lot of sense, because in my opinion, his deck is more a Squee deck than a survival deck.
Yeah, because it's like a 6/6 mongrel deck. Oh, careful study, frantic search. Right.
He plays tons of careful studies, tons of frantic searches,
and your random foil. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I love it. The thesis. I'm a convert. I'm never playing Squee and RG survival ever again.
I think it's possible it's wrong in Elves. I'm not even kidding. I almost think this.
The conversation is definitely making me feel like you could at least question it, and at the very least, I would consider sideboarding it out.
I still play one in my Elves deck though.
Yeah,
but I also play a Genesis main, because I think like heavy mana with Genesis is a really big angle to attack.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I'm trying to think about how I normally win with Elves, and like I just think that you like, yeah, I don't know. Do you need to draw 2 cards per turn? Like if the 1 card you draw is just Deranged Hermit. Like let's say you're like gassed out and your opponent has like random stuff on the table. It's like, okay, well then you can just play Deranged Hermit every turn. It's not the worst.
How often are you like, you know what I could really use? A Howling Mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
No. Oh, okay. You heard it here first. Cut Squee from your Elves deck. You'll be fine. You don't need those training wheels. Do you have any reactions to Euros? What stood out to you about that tournament?
It was wild, right? Like the biggest thing is I look at the decks and I'm just like, wow, this is a really different pre-modern than we saw 6 months ago. And I don't think it's necessarily like, the meta has coalesced into something, but it's really like, I just feel like people are trying more stuff out and just getting busy with some new lists, and it's kind of cool.
So this is crazy to me, because I don't feel great about specifically Oath of Druids. Like I have like I love cards like Call the Herd, right? And I love blue cards. I like Gush and Korean Dryad and stuff. But I mean, I guess I like Korean Dryad also gets pretty annoyed by Oath. And now it feels like there are more Oath decks than there were Oath Parfait decks, period. So now, like, I would say that, I mean, Parfait was up to, I guess it was up to 10%, like 10 pilots, 5%. It feels like we're at 10% Oath decks now. I'm just pulling these numbers out of my ass. So if you've done a metagame breakdown, I'm happy to hear about it. But like these Oath Terravore decks, one, they're really cool. I have a lot of respect for them. I think the design is really good. Like the whole, like just the basic concept of like, okay, we have this Oath monster. It's gigantic. Most decks can't deal with it. And we can cast it for 3 mana. It's so simple, but it's so like, I don't know, it just kind of works.
It clicks, yeah. It's a really efficient package. Like it's clear that old TV Tyrant has been whittling away at this thing, cutting a lot of the fat off of it and making it a fine-tuned machine. When I watch this deck, I'm like, wow, it's really like efficiently using its mana and pressuring the opponent a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah, it kind of has a lot of bases covered for a deck that only runs green cards and artifacts, right?
For sure.
Like, you can get a lot of work done with Sphere Resistance, Winter's Grasp, Rishadan Port, etc. So that's really cool. And then, of course, I'm pretty scared of Oath Paluche, the Fran Cataclysm Oath deck, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play creatures. Okay, I'm fine. I won't trigger Oath of Druids. I'll play a deck with no creatures. But I would like to like play Harrow and tap some Thawing Glaciers or cycle some Crows and Tuskers and have a lot of lands. But actually, I can't do that either because these decks are just going to Cataclysm me. Ironically, and I'm not saying that I'm fine with the land tax ban, but ironically, the two things that people complain about how oppressive Parfait was just like you can't play creatures and you can't play lands. You still can't play creatures and lands. Like you're still gonna get Geddoned and Oath to Oblivion. Like those cards are still legal. Yeah. And then
wouldn't you rather be a player who plays lands that has to deal with Cataclysm than land tax though?
I mean, the only way
what's burying people more.
Like I know what you're saying because like the idea is you're like, oh, I'm gonna play this blue deck. I play this blue deck which has a lot of lands playing with like standstill. Well, all these lands in play, I'm just gonna counterspell the Cataclysm. That shit's not gonna happen anyways. Like you're just gonna get Abeyance, or you'll get all your blue sources Rishadan ported because your deck is still horrible. Like all your blue sources are gonna get Rishadan ported and wastelanded, and then after that, they're just gonna Cataclysm you. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna play standstill. It's like they have 4 Mishra's 4. Or I guess if you're playing Landy Oath, you have 4 Mishra's 4 factory or 4 treetop, but treetop brawls with Mishra's, so you can't even get land still advantage on them.
That's a very blue centric look at things, I think. Like obviously all this land destruction stuff is going to be like at its height against decks really leaning on their mana base and developing like a lot of lands to get their business done, right?
Agree. So what is like tell me about the not blue deck that can defeat Cataclysm, Oath, and play a lot of lands on its way to doing it.
Mono red.
Well, mono red doesn't have to play lands.
Right. No, I'm saying like, okay, all right. I get that.
Yeah.
All right. But I feel like there has to be decks that play lands.
There isn't. There just isn't.
It's just different.
I'm telling you, your Dead Guy Ales, your This Girl, Star Spangled Slaughter, Patriot, Angel McAngel Face deck, your Dead Guy Ale, which made top 8. I mean, you're just gonna get Cataclysmed. Like your Enchantress deck is gonna get Cataclysmed. Now we watched.
I'm just gonna attack with my Exalted Angel and still beat their Terravore.
You're gonna beat a 15/15.
It's not 15/15. How many times do they get to Oath? You think I'm just running out every creature I can? That's
well, is the only creature in your deck Exalted Angel though?
No, it's also Lightning Angel.
Yeah, so your Lightning Angel is gonna trigger.
No, it's fine.
And then here's the thing: if they're playing green white, then they can just poop out an Exalted Angel, and you're just back at parity. I mean, I don't know. I agree. I would like to be the player with an Exalted Angel on the battlefield, but like
The
if
other
they just
thing,
like
though,
Cataclysm and then like I don't know.
I'm not sure their Terrafor's beating me though. If I'm on that deck,
I
because I think
mean,
I'm probably getting
if you
enough
go,
material into play.
yeah, I mean, it
I
would
guess they
just
could just get to keep Oathing.
yeah, no, no,
Maybe you're
it
right.
has to be like Mother of Runes, Mage naming Oath, right? So you got to go Mom, Mage, name Oath, and then you beat all the plows with your mom. And if they're on the play, or they're on the draw, actually, and they just go land Mox Diamond, Oath of Druids, then you have to have the disenchant or annul that turn. It's just not pretty. Like Oath of Druids is a messed up card. Like I think we can agree that the card is absurdly powerful. I don't enjoy
Against creatures.
I don't enjoy the prospect of playing Savannah Lions against Oath of Druids. And yet, despite this, despite what I feel is like the oppressive omnipresence of Oath of Druids, 2 copies of Savannah Lion decks, 8 copies of Savannah Lions total made the top 4 of the European Championships.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Both of these decks had did they both have Mom Mage? Yeah, they both had Mom Mage.
Yeah, they did.
So maybe you're down to battle against Oath if you have Mom Mage and you back it up with, Mana Leak or Enlightened Tutor for Seal Cleansing, or board in some Disenchant Ray of Revelation.
Well, their plows aren't doing anything either. So like if they play against that Terravor deck, they're going with the Terravor. Like every plow they have is just a turn. I mean, I guess they gain a zillion life though. I don't know what happens.
Yeah, I would probably not.
Ice it.
I would probably do the following. I would tap my Ramosian Sergeant, and then I would go get Whipcorder, and then I would tap that Terravor, and then they would find another Terravor. I mean, the Oaths just can't be on the table, but it just sounds like they didn't have a problem keeping the Oath off the table. I don't know, if you're Jacob Paulson, you can just get in there with your Solteri Priest. We saw in the mirror an Exalted Angel being successfully defeated by the presence of Alpha Strike plus blow up my own. I don't know. It was a whole thing. Lightning Bolt, basically. Lightning Bolt won the day for the White Weenie mirror. Elves, 2 White Weenie decks. One's a 5-color one. One's a blue-white landstill based one. Standstill based one, rather. Better. Which one do I like better? I like the one that contains the card Mox Diamond better. What about you?
I think I did too. I thought that was a really cool list.
I mean,
it had a lot of versatility, had a lot of just like universal answers to a lot of different things. So,
I mean, the curve ends at 2. I don't love these Enlightened Tutors, but maybe it's fine. But the curve ends at 2. So you get to play Gemstone Mine, Undiscovered Paradise, and Wasteland. And I think that's super sick. Like, talk about tempo, just, land Mox Diamond, Dorks, Wasteland you on the play. Yeah. Seems pretty sick. Even on the draw, I'll take it. I mean, being able to Wasteland on turn 1 while still developing your board on the draw via Mox Diamond. I mean, that's card disadvantage like to death, but your curve stops it too. So
yeah. So what, right? You're just trying to get your beats down and then stop them from winning. Like that's a basic concept of it. Like, here's my clock. I think the E-tutors are kind of good here when I look at it, because when you play these aggro decks, like the thing you lose to a lot are just like narrow answers, right? So like if you're willing to always trade 2 cards for those narrow answers, because they often don't have a lot of them, because a lot of times like combo decks and stuff are working at a big card at disadvantage, right?
Yeah, I mean you are sort of priced into E-tutor for your 1 copy of Seal Cleansing, and then you can answer 1 Oath, and often that's good enough. The mono green deck can't find its Oaths except for a Sylvan Library. Same for the green white deck, depending on how many Enlightened Tutors are in their deck. And then sometimes they don't have the time to cast 2 Oaths before they're dead. So, it's hard to imagine this beating, like, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe this does beat, like, because, okay, name a
Doesn't beat
deck.
the Rock.
Name a
I'll tell you
deck.
that.
Yeah, it doesn't beat the Rock. Well, I don't know.
does
Maybe
not
you get
beat the Rock.
Wastelanded. Oh, yeah, hear me out.
No.
Wasteland you, mage naming, let's say Mother of Maroons, mage naming Deed, Wasteland you.
That's a fix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mage into or Mother of Runes and a mage was like always awesome against
Yeah.
Rock.
But solo mage or two mages on naming Deed is going to be pretty good.
It does have popular Rock backbreaking Bone Crusher.
Exalted Angel.
Exalted Angel.
Yeah. One in the main, one in the board, just to get you.
I made the joke when I saw their deck that it was basically this girl.
Yeah. I mean, it's running the same card. It's got two Fire Ice, Mom Mage, one Exalted Angels, 4 Silver Knight. They just canned the Lightning Angels in favor of Savannah Lions, and they're just like, instead of casting Lightning Angel, how about Wasteland? You know, how about?
Sure.
I mean, I have a 5-color This Girl deck. Do you know about my 5-color This Girl deck?
No.
I'm like 3 weeks into playing Premodern or something like that, or like maybe a month, and I made a Mox Diamond 5-color This Girl deck, and my beaters were Anorid, Brushhopper, and Lightning Angel. But it was a Gush Diamond deck. So I ran 4 strand and 8 islands in my 5-color deck, and it was sweet.
And you say you're a Spike. Come on.
I build some horrible decks.
There's severe Johnny energy out of that.
I'm like you should see my deck file. They're all Johnny decks. I mean, just look at my PSS lineup. Like, you know, Parfait is obviously not a Johnny deck really, but like
it was pretty spiky. I'm not going to give you this one.
But like, you know, freaking Grotog and Mox Diamond Replenish. I mean, Replenish is obviously like, I mean, I don't know. I think Replenish is a super powerful deck. I'm very happy to see 2 copies in the top 8. I'm very unhappy to see it lose to Pablo in the round of 8. We put our predictions in. And I'm like, well, Replenish beats Elves, so it's fine. Like literally, like, you know,
Pablo.
Fluffy's out there, and he's just like, no changes. You don't sideboard a single card in for Elves, and yet, I mean, 4 Tanglewire is going to be really good against Replenish though. If you don't draw Frantic Search, but if you draw Frantic Search, then it's not that good. But if you have 4 Tanglewire and some amount of crypts, then you might be good.
Yeah, it puts pressure. You'd have to have that though, which is something you wouldn't have otherwise.
We have no crypts in the sideboard of Pablo's Elves deck, which is pretty wild. So just getting it done with Naturalize, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, say what you will about Oath of Druids, Goblin Lackey, and Phyrexian Dreadnought. None of those cards in the top 8 of Euros. Is this like, I mean, is this variance? Is it these decks aren't that good? Are we gonna just rag on all the European Goblins, Dreadnought, and Oath players and just say that they suck?
Europeans, they just kind of don't understand.
They don't understand Oath the Druids, you know. They're more. Well, this is ironic because just 2 weeks ago I was saying the Europeans have our number as far as Elves players because they have Ole, Pablo, and, you know, plenty of others like Fluffy, etc. And we just, you know, shout out Mike Arnold. Shout out Mike Arnold and John Grudzina and Jeff White. Jeff himself just put up a blog post and he was like, well, I needed reps on the deck. I'm still learning the deck. So, yeah, they're really out there.
I always almost play Elves. I played a lot of Elves. I know the lines pretty well. I just never want to. I just always want to like play some dumb brew instead. Yeah.
You want to have fun. I think.
Yeah.
So, to the listeners at home,
Elves is pretty fun though.
BK,
as far as
Elves is super fun. I love playing Elves. In fact, the only thing that I don't like about playing Elves is losing sometimes to opponents who, like, I don't know, have any form of resistance. Or, you know, have like too much resistance. Like if they have like 17 engineer, I guess I don't know. No, there's no downside. I never lose with the deck either. I mean, I like lose a match here or there, but I like in my brain, I'm just like, I never lose. I'm just like, damn, this deck is gas.
I think it has a rough time with the best decks in the format.
It has a rough time with just goblins.
Yeah, it has a really rough time. Goblins is the worst, but it doesn't. It's no walk in the park against even like blue-white control. Honestly,
that's true. It's not a buy versus.
Favored, but they're favored for sure.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, I also feel like
Mike gets back here, I'll tell you differently, but like they're definitely favored against blue-white.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way. Like, I have some decks that I generally consider that, like, if I'm the stronger player, the more prepared and the more astute player at the table, those decks will never let me down. And I think Elves is one of them. So if my opposing landstill opponent is very sharp, then, sure, they've got a shot. But like, if my opponent makes any mistakes, Elves is just an extraordinary, very punishing. I mean, generally speaking,
it's not even making a mistake. It's just, it has like the oops, I win.
Yeah, and then sometimes they die.
It's like, it's better than any deck in the format where like you have some draws that no matter what they're playing, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And that's a big draw for the deck.
Yeah, and this is actually interesting. I'm going to tie this back into the discussion about the burn, the bolt the bird thing, because one of the biggest reasons you would bolt the Llanowar Elf on turn 1 is if your opponent has Gaia's Cradle the next turn. Then it's like an enormous punish to not bolt the Llanowar Elf. Mm-hmm. But in order to convert the Gaia's Cradle for value, they need like a mana payoff, and that mana payoff would be survival of the fittest. And does it really matter what you do if your Elves opponent has Cradle survival in their opening hand? Like, does it really matter? Like, if it
does. Because you can still slow them down, right?
Well, you can't slow them down forever. You draw you draw 1 card per turn, then they draw 2. And if you're the burn player, your cards better be, all lava darts.
Grim Lavamancer is like kind of the real thing you need.
Yeah, but Grim Lavamancer is at parity with the survival of the fittest, and that's only until they have access to Masticore. It's an interesting spot. And then one other super interesting spot was, I'm just obsessed with this match. Go check it out on the Twitch VOD. Yeah. I'm gonna do a deep dive. There's a turn where Pablo plays a Well-Wisher Summoning Sick. And Martin has a scroll, 4 lands, that Lava Dart still in his graveyard. So everything's like, I don't know, maybe he didn't have the scroll. Maybe it was like the turn before the scroll. But I was like, surely he's going to cash this Lava Dart in for that Well-Wisher. But he incinerates the Well-Wisher and saves the Lava Dart. So this was like 2 turns before the Jackal Pup turn I was telling you about. And I'm just thinking to myself, I think the best play is to incinerate the face, and then tap that mountain 1 more time to do something, curse scroll or whatever. I mean, I don't know, play a creature, play a bolt and hit the face, and then use it for the Lava Dart before the Summoning Sick Well-Wisher becomes Unsummoning Sick. Because if you incinerate the Well-Wisher, then it gained 3 life. That it already did the thing.
Does he need 4 mountains to double Fire Blast? Is he molding to that, you think?
It's not impossible, but if that line gets cut off, even then you're trading then you're incinerating, right? Then your incinerate plus Lava Dart is 4 damage, or your Fire Blast is 4 damage. So like,
wow,
yeah,
Martin's a buffoon. But we trust this guy with our format? Just kidding, Martin.
Just kidding. Don't ban.
No, I thought Martin played really well, and all his plays were like very defensible at the very least, and maybe even were the correct. I think there's a whole bunch of nuance, and we can see. I guess we couldn't see their hands, but
I think
there's a lot of permutations that could be different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, actually, it's important given the context of Martin's hand. He could be playing towards a line that we don't see with no knowledge of either player's hands. But I do think that the 2 plays, which I do think are debatable, is incinerating that Well-Wisher. Let's actually, every play I've talked about, burning something before attacking with Jackal Pup, bolting the Llanowar and incinerating the Well-Wisher. I think these are all autopilot plays. Like these are plays that you just think are correct without thinking about them further. And I think once you start considering what what your hand is and like what could happen in the matchup and what you need to do in order to win the game, right? So bolting the Llanowar is like a tactical play. It's a tactic that we've all rehearsed, is just bolt the bird, right?
And
but does it factor into a strategy if your hand is all bolts and you need 7 bolts? You can't win with 6 bolts, right? So if you're bolting every single time you use a bolt on a creature, you're reducing your ability to win by 1 turn. So they just time walked you, right? And like if Elves gets time walk, who's gonna win? Like who has, basically, if I were to put it in very, very broad terms, the Elf player improves exponentially, whereas the Burn player can only improve linearly. Their draw step can only, on average, draw them 3 damage worth of gas.
Mm-hmm. Unless they get a ball lightning.
Unless they get a ball lightning.
Or a Lavamancer.
Yeah. And again, like the Elves player actually has an endpoint, right? Because the moment that they have an active Well-Wisher with untappers, or they have a Mastercore, then all of a sudden it just doesn't matter what you draw. So
especially if they get anger in the yard.
So you just don't beat a survival. I mean, Martin doesn't know that Pablo doesn't have survival, but I would say that if Pablo kept 7 cards, I would assume that survival of the fittest in those 7 cards. Because when the Elves players were on Mano's podcast, they explained it quite simply. It's like, you can beat Burn, you need to have survival. And I think Pablo knows this, and survival is what makes it possible for Elves, I think. So but yeah, it's super interesting. So with Euros in the bag, I mean, this is like always a funny discussion. So this is what tends to happen on this podcast. Michael J is like, there's no way this deck can beat that deck, and sometimes it's like in line with what everybody thinks. Sometimes it's like a hot take, and based on MJF doesn't really have a tier list. He just has like, these are good decks, these are bad decks, and like there's just like no texture, right? It's just kind of like, well, why do I need to look at what people are playing? I just know which decks play. I just think about which decks play. And I think that's super interesting. But I think the listeners would love a little bit of tier list discussion. So Euros.
Oh, and this has always been avoided in these parts.
Oh, you also don't like this discussion?
List. No. I'm curious about this. When he says this deck always beats this other deck, do you ever like pause the podcast and play it out a little bit?
Just a quick
or
break.
Do you just like
quick break.
Just assume, quick break.
Michael J actually defeated me 10 times in a row with Goblins versus Elves, so he is right. Because I have to take his word for it. He's like, we tested the matchup for 3 hours and I didn't win a single game. I'm just like, I don't know. Do you suck? Does your opponent rule? Like, did you get unlucky 10 times in a row? Like, we tested the Goblins versus Replenish matchup. Or actually what we did was like, we tested Goblins versus Grotog. And like, we split like 4 game ones or something. And I was like, see, it's not as lopsided as you think. And then we like discussed it a little bit more, and I'm just like, well, honestly, if you just do things a little bit differently, you can probably never lose from the Goblin side. And he's like, oh, well, once I know that, the Goblins never loses to Grotog. I'm like, well, some of my Goblins opponents won't know how to play. Like, I've beat Goblins with Grotog twice in, deep in the fall brawl or deep in the spring fling this year, and like online and stuff. Just like, I have a handle on the matchup and my opponent doesn't. Like, that's just the deal. And then what would happen? I mean, we talked about this. Landy Hoth had a great Landstill matchup, and then they played it to the point that Michael J figured out what to do on the Landstill side, and then Landy Hoth stopped winning. And then, Land was just like, well, quite simply put, nobody's going to have these reps because my deck is new. And, I'm still going to count it as like advantage Landy Hoth. And Michael J is, of course, just like, well, Landstill can never lose. So,
yeah, it's definitively a poor matchup. Yeah, he deals in absolutes.
I like it. It's
So
good content. We're all enjoying the Michael J
I love
isms.
it. It's your podcast is great because it's really like kind of like you're kind of like more like new think on how a lot of this stuff works, and he's got like an older
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like point of view on it.
It's that.
It's
Do you
really
know that meme from Knives Out, which is just that like it just doesn't make any sense. It compels me though, and I'm like, that's just our listeners, just like hot take, and then the response is it doesn't make any sense. It's like that. It compels me, and it's just kind of like actually, Robin said my favorite thing, which is that he like listens to the podcast on the treadmill or while he's at the gym, whatever, and it gets him all fired up for his workout. And then like so Michael J like fires him up, and then I like cool him off because I like I bring in the voice of reason.
you're starting to distort and stuff.
Yeah, that one is a connection issue.
Okay.
But it's safe on my side because all the audio is localized here.
Okay. Sorry about that.
But yeah, so I mean, do you think that we honestly could be living in a world where Dreadnought, Goblins, and Oath decks have to share the throne with Savannah Lions, Replenish, Enchantress, which top 8'd here, second place in Misty, and top 4 in New York. So Enchantress is back, baby. And I mean, surely not a deck containing basic swamps, right? Surely not.
Yeah, basic swamps are still having a rough time. I think like Replenish was one of those decks that was played a lot more in Europe than over here, and there just weren't a lot of like pilots getting behind Replenish in the US tournaments. But I think that's always been like a really good deck.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's obviously been good since Michael J's top 4, and I don't know how I feel about Sinbad. I do know how I feel about Sinbad.
Oh, I meant Enchantress, not Replenish.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine.
They're similar. They're both similar, I think. Both of them were not played that much, and then once they got played, they started doing well.
Yeah, Enchantress was not very good against Parfait because they could never stick an Enchantress, and then Parfait just runs infinite seal cleansing, and Armageddon's really good.
I heard it was a terrible matchup for Parfait.
Interesting. I assume that Rich never loses from the Parfait side.
Yeah, but we can't count that.
If the Parfait, yeah, I know. I guess the way that I see it, Oath keeps Argothian off the table, and then you're just like a Ray of Revelation deck, and in some cases you're an Aura Silence deck. But I don't know. Barring that, a little bit of Sterling Grove action could go a long way in that department, but it does feel like Enchantress can't afford not to trigger land tax, can't afford not to trigger Oath for the most part, right? Because you need 2 Enchantresses in play to be doing anything. And then
they don't have to play an Enchantress either, though. They can just use Enchantress's presence and go off with that.
But that's my point, is that they need to go off with 2 copies of Enchantress Presence. So they need to have Grove, Presence, underneath land tax, any number of Seal of Cleansing, Ray of Revelation, or of Silence. Of course you can just play the Argothian and just have it in play until the Oath hits play. So it's not like the worst. But yeah, maybe it was just held down by the Enchantress players are the players that used to play Parfait.
Maybe it sounds familiar. I want to drop a bunch of enchantments into play. Oh wait, this deck over here just drops a lot of artifacts and enchantments into play. I could do that too.
Yeah. It's got a sick card advantage engine. It's got prison elements. Many would call it Parfait at home. Rich, of course, is brewing up his own Parfait at home. So that's been fun to follow. But yeah,
I'm dubious though.
BK, best deck in the format. Go. No hesitation.
I think Goblins is still the best.
Yes.
I think I was saying this earlier in the super secret Discord, but I think it's just like the fact that it presents a clock and does like powerful things, and it's so good against other creature decks. And then when it sideboards, it has a lot of these generic answers that are super good, um, and still has that clock. It puts a lot of pressure on most decks and like kind of beats the fringe stuff after board.
Yeah, it's got a good proactive game plan, and then it falls back on a good sort of like grindy game, like pivot, has access to a lot of tools, which is surprising for a deck that only makes red or green mana. But
it comes out strong against the decks that are really strong, right?
Yeah,
or have classically been really strong, like blue-white Landstill or Goblin or Elves or.
I'm hearing a lot of respect for Landstill on this podcast. Do you care to elaborate?
Oh, Landstill's good.
Oh.
You don't like Landstill? I know you don't like Landstill.
I hate Landstill.
I'm not a huge. You know what? I can't say I'm like huge into Landstill either, though. But I do respect it. I think it's kind of like just one of those decks that does its job.
Honestly,
well.
Landstill could use a little BK Coastal Tower action for me to get behind it. Like, just play 4 Coastal Tower. Just do it.
I do. Whenever I build a Landstill deck, I do put 4 Coastal Towers in.
Yeah. I'm down for a Lonely Sandbar in there as well, of course.
I remember when Caleb first started playing the format, he was like, why aren't people playing Coastal Tower?
Yeah.
Like, he was immediately like, put 4 into Landstill. Like, why not draw the correct mana to cast your spells?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I was like, they're like, oh, we're just gonna hold back with counter spells, and then it was like, okay, well, you need you to double counterspell, Abeyance Armageddon or like Abeyance Replenish. So like, do you have you like on turn 5 or 6? It's like probably not.
The reason I think Landstill is really good is because against the field, it's one of the best decks. Like if you walk in and there's like 5 different combo decks in the room, and people doing God knows what, which is very common in pre-modern. Like even if you go to a pre-modern event and you're ready for those best 4 decks in the format, which is like how people prepare for Magic tournaments nowadays, because in regular constructed formats, that is the reality. You're going to play against four different decks for the most part. You're going to get slaughtered because there's that top tier is only like 7 out of the 30 decks in the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I mean, it's so interesting because Dreadnought is one of those like hilarious decks that just like put half the decks to bed, just like no shot. Yeah. And then it loses to freaking White Weenie, which I love. Like Dreadnought is like pretty bad against like any like, well, it's bad against Savannah Lions. It's bad against Soltari Priest wielding a Rancor. There's been a VOD of Fran in the early days with the Blue-White Dreadnought, and he's like, so I don't know if you know the story. So for the first, like, I don't know, I want to say 2 months of Fran brewing and playing Blue-White Dreadnought, it was freaking Disneyland for him. He just never lost. And then he lost one match. It was probably like the only match that he actually lost. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not like he was 19-1, but he was like, 25-4 or something. And it was one of those like, well, 3 of those losses, like he was just kind of like, it was close, right? But the only match that wasn't close at all was Rancor Soltari Priest. And he was like, well, I guess I can never beat this deck. And people would just be like, oh, Fran, what are some good and bad matchups for Blue-White Dreadnought? And he's like, well, good matchup is everything, and bad matchup is White Weenie. It's like that's your answer. And
when Dreadnought first like really dropped, and then everybody was playing it, out of nowhere, everybody was playing Dreadnought. Lester Smirling was like, everybody was on blue because Blue-White wasn't out there. I'm like, I don't know, just put 4 meddling mage in, you'll probably win all the mirrors. And he's like, nah, I don't want to figure out the meta.
Yeah.
He just played mono blue.
4 Flag Strand, 4 Addercarweeds.
It was, literally like told him what to do. Like what Fred basically, he just put like 4 meddlings in.
Yeah. Lester Smirling has been stirring the pot. He's been stirring the pot on the Premodern Facebook saying Goblins is a horribly misbuilt deck. Do you share this opinion?
No, I don't. I think it's pretty well built overall. I do. I do agree with him on pile driver.
Two pile drivers?
I play one.
One. What if you need to attack with two pile drivers? What if they have one blocker and you have two pile drivers?
When do you have to do that?
When they cast Terravor. When they oath out a Terravor. You're like, okay, you've got a Terravor. I have two pile drivers. GG.
I guess that's a situation you would want to.
I mean, this goes for any 2-power creature. Like, if your opponent casts Call of the Herd and you have Goblin Pile Driver, then you can't attack with that Goblin Pile Driver, especially if it's your only one. Like, for a while.
I mean, I build my deck to like be a way to not just like if they don't have blockers, Pile Driver is great. He's like a really fast clock and kills them, and then you go get your one and kill them really fast.
Yeah.
But if they're assembling blockers like Call of the Herds and stuff, you really want to go like if in your situation, I would get my sharpshooter and I attack with all my 2-power goblins, and you would block and.
I'm good with
damage.
Goblin King. I like Goblin King as a way to layer in some extra damage. I don't like Goblin Tinker or main deck.
I don't like that either. I like Sharpshooter's the best.
I'm down with Sharpshooter, but I don't know. So 2 Sharpshooter, 1 Pile Driver, and BK Gobos.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
It's great.
I mean, I guess if both Sharpshooters are in play, it's pretty sick.
Also, I play for a Siege Gang though, because like I don't understand.
We're a 4 Siege Gang podcast.
Why don't people want for?
No, we're a 4 Siege Gang. In this house, we play 4 Siege. We don't even have to debate this. Play 4 Siege Gang Commander. 3 Siege Gang Commander is bad. 4 Siege Gang Commander rules. Play Ancient Tomb.
Mike's talked at length about BK's 3 gears of goblins, right?
Yeah. One of the gears is the 4th copy of Siege Gang Commander.
Well, that's the first gear, honestly.
Yeah, Lackey Siege
Your
Gang.
first gear is just connecting with a Lackey, and your second gear is I don't know. I don't remember those gears now.
You just forgot, dude. The second gear is Goblin Ringleader.
Yeah, the second gear is Matrons and Ringleaders and card advantage your opponent out, and the last gear is to sit there. And sometimes, if it's an oath, you have to sit there until you assemble in your hand a 1-turn kill. And if it's not an oath, you sit there and add goblins to the board until you kill them with Sharpshooter.
Yeah, Sharpshooter Siege Gang combo. I mean, I'm down for freaking Goblin Sledder then.
I don't hate a Sledder's
kind of sweet. I mean, if your plan is to attack,
Sledder's a worse prospector though.
No, Sledder's good because you just get an extra damage if you're attacking with 5 goblins.
I've totally considered a Sledder before. I've had it in and out of my list, but I think it's like just not quite good enough.
I mean, I know that people love Prospector, and I've seen what it can do, and I've sacrificed some of my goblins to Goblin Prospector plenty of times, but I don't love it.
Prospector is Disciple of Vault. Prospector is, if I have a Prospector and a CJ Commander and some other goblins, you're just dead. So, and if you have a Sharpshooter, you're really dead. You're just absolutely dead, and I never have to attack you.
Yeah. But do you have to play 3 or 1?
You have to play 3.
Yeah. What about Mog Fanatic? Do you have to play less Mog Fanatic?
You got these baboons like, Mike Flores who think that you play the Prospector and then you sack it and play your War Chief to get a turn 2 War Chief.
We used to do it in Standard. That's what he says.
For babies. I don't know.
It's a pretty bad play.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys think Mox Diamond is card disadvantage. Let me tell you about Lotus Petal.
I only make that play if I'm playing against like all-in combo, where I.
Well, you also don't have multiple pile drivers to follow that play up with.
Yeah,
you only have 1 copy.
I only have 5 because I have 4.
No, you have to play in your scenario where you're sandbagging stuff against an oath. 1, you need multiple War Chiefs because a single plow stops that plan, and that's super bad. Of course, they might just oath out a Terravore, which doesn't matter. But if they oath out a Shard Phoenix, then it's super bad. But sometimes they can oath out nothing if the top 4
How are they
PSs.
oathing?
You're gonna send and then sack?
No, how are they? No, I'm gonna kill them.
Well, no. If they plow your War Chiefs, then your team loses Haith. That's what I'm saying. So they can stop that. Like if my Goblin's opponent has 7 cards in hand, I'm going to be holding back every copy of Swords of Plowshares. And I'm going to play Swords of Plowshares.
So you're specifically playing Fran Pavlushek, and you pronounce his name wrong all the time. Fran Pavlushek.
Calm down. Calm down with the it's
green white.
It's whatever I want. It's Palushik. It's Palush.
It's a V.
Pavlushek. No, it's
I'm teaching you live how to do this. Fran, this is Fran Love right here.
Are you Polish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Kowal, yeah.
Oh, is it Kowal?
Kowal, yeah.
Oh, okay. Fine. Pavlushek.
It's been Americanized enough that
I mean, Fran doesn't even pronounce his own name correctly. He had to ask Piotr Glogowski.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He didn't pronounce it correctly until he met
Canister. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, did the Poles invade Argentina? Like, I don't even know why he has a Polish last name.
I don't either.
Okay. We'll have to ask him.
Did.
They probably did.
I mean,
I asked that question to Mike. I'm like, Mike, if you're Filipino, why is your last name Flores? And he's like, well, have you ever heard of colonialism? And I was like, I don't know. The Spanish invaded the Philippines. Like neither of those countries are on this continent, so you don't learn about it in school. like yeah, the Spaniards came from Mexico. I didn't know they were heading to other places too. And he's like, yeah, like is yeah. Anyways, Flores. So no, I mean, I think Green White Oath is just more popular because before Fran was playing it, it was like a Patrick Burt deck. And then even before that, it was like, a dumb like Phantom Neshoba deck. So I think that Fran's deck is going to rise to the top of the Terravore Oath heap. I love the mono green version for how like, consistent it is and it just does its thing. But I do like just playing 4 copies of Cataclysm instead of playing 8 copies of Stone Rain. Because the deck, like the green deck, runs almost no card advantage. It just has Sylvan Library. If you would believe it, TV Tyrant was running Miri's Guile before Sylvan Library.
I never understand Miri's Guile on any list. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's wrong.
They play 4. They play 4 Sylvan Libraries, though, right? Or is that not?
I would hope so if I'm playing mono green, but I guess I don't know for sure. But
I gotta check now.
But anyways, you don't play a lot of card advantage. So natural card advantage in the form of Cataclysm is, I think, a lot better than still just like one for winning. Because as we all know, I'm talking to the Godfather of Ponza here. The best way to beat a Ponza deck is to just draw a lot of lands. Which you have the option for.
Honestly, if you want the origin story of Ponza, there were other land destruction decks out there, and they weren't good. And my idea with Ponza was to use it as a tempo play. Like, the idea was that the Stone Rain sets my opponent back 1 land, and then I am casting a stronger spell each turn. Then they're battling to catch up because when I Stone Rain you turn 3, on my turn 4 I have 4 mana. You only have.
I mean, we love tempo on this podcast. I'm full on. I think
it's tempo.
I think consistently. I mean, so I don't know. I've been dwelling on this recently, and we talked about it. Tom was in our chat watching Pablo versus Martin, and we're like, do you have to be on the play here as Burn? Like, his question was, does Burn want to be on the play here? And our response was, Burn wants Elves to not be on the play. Because
I was there.
Yeah. Because let's talk about a game that lasts 4 turns. the Elves player plays the land, plays some spells. The non-elves player plays land, plays some spells. That goes back and forth. So the elves player has access to 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 mana, barring Gaia's Cradles and Mana Elves. Obviously, it's actually 1 + 3 + 100, but conceivably, you could have spent 10 mana casting spells, and obviously in the Elves case, you could have spent 1,000 mana casting spells. You could have spent 10 mana casting spells while your opponent has spent 6 mana casting spells. This is like the same with a replenish deck, right? So like the replenish deck on the play, like this is why I added Mox Diamond to it, because I was just kind of like, okay, turn 1 Soul Land Mox Diamond, I had 3 mana. The next turn I had 4 mana, and the next turn I had 6 mana or 5 mana, Frantic Search or whatever. Like I've produced 14 mana before you've made 6. Like that's tempo, and then you're dead. But
you understood it as the all-in combo deck that it actually is.
I mean,
you eschewed all card
gears
advantage possible to just gear into a very fast replenish combo.
I mean, conceivably, like I didn't sacrifice much to do it. Like the card that I cut from the main deck is Seal Cleansing. I was like, okay, well this card is just like a half measure, and we don't do half measures in Spike Colony. We're all in all the time.
Okay, that makes sense. And sometimes you flip a turn to Exalted Angel, and then you lose to a red-green deck.
Yeah, I was on the draw, so that made
that was my one game win.
Yeah, I turned to. I was like, okay, I got this. Turn to Exalted Angel. You had the anger naturally, right? You just like did like Wild Mongrel pitch anger 3. To it. Yeah, okay, so you play 3 instead of Squee. Just play a bunch of anger, and if you get your angers crypted, you just go grab another anger. Brian Kowal is always angry when he's playing Red Green Survival.
So much anger.
Love to see it. Anyways, that's tempo. So basically, in the Ponza, the Ponza things like play something. I mean, we weren't playing spells on turn 1 and 2 back in this day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Spells on turn 1 or 2, not very popular.
Less popular.
I
mean, mono red decks did, but we also had a really good mono red matchup because we killed. They played way too few lands, and we killed one of their lands.
Yeah, just in
that case, we just mana screw them, and then kill all their creatures and win the game.
Nice. But yeah, so by this paradigm, you basically just like play a couple Stone Rains, and then you just you can spend more mana. If you spend your mana every turn, and they're short of mana, and then the most important thing, if you Stone Rain them, they go up to 3, you go up to 3, Stone Rain them, they go up to 3, they go back up to 3. They continue not to play anything. Then your opponent spent 0 mana. It's a big deal. I don't know what 4 and 5 mana spells we were casting at the time, but I'm sure they were nasty.
Lightning Dragon.
Oh, that's super sick.
Lightning Dragon.
So they have to pay 4 mana for that twice.
Yeah, we did.
So it's 8 mana.
It's 8 mana dragon. We also had Wildfire, so I'd kill your land, and you still had to play a 3rd land to play something, and then I'd play another land, do something, and then you play your 4th one, and then I just Wildfire all your lands. Yeah.
So we had so tell me again, the sauce, the cheese, and the bread. What's what? Sauce is burn.
Cheese is burn.
Cheese is burn.
Burn is cheesy.
Oh, interesting.
Red cheese, that is burn.
Okay,
that's what we called. Burn was often referred to as cheese.
I get it.
Back in the day.
Yeah. This is like cross pollinates with other video games where like cheese plays was the thing. Okay, so then what's the sauce? Sauce is the land destruction?
Sauce was the land destruction.
Okay, and then the bread was
the lands. A robust mana base filled with lots of utility lands.
Okay. That's probably often overlooked, like that there was utility lands in the mana base. I just think it's like a burn in land LD deck.
Well, at the time, nobody played mono red that wasn't like just aggro, so it was pretty weird to play it. Randy Bueller famously called Ponza mono red Sly, only taking out a bunch of the good cards and putting in unplayables.
Nice. I concur.
Adding lands and unplayables.
Do you feel like nowadays we call the mono green Terravor deck mono green Ponza. Some people call it Ponza Oath, mono green Ponza Oath. What do you feel about attaching the Ponza name to decks that contain no cheese?
Well, to me, like I haven't thought like decks really felt like the original Ponza deck I played for a long time, and I'm just kind of like, people just call anything with Land Destruction Ponza, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a fine legacy to have.
It just builds my brand. You know, I gotta run with it.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. It's like Soul Malka. Like I wasn't like I guess I didn't know that much about Soul Malka, but I would be in like Aspiring Spike's like Twitch chat, and somehow whenever anybody asked anything about The Rock, Soul Malka was in chat. Like he just was there. Like he has like an alert. He has like an AI that's combing the internet, and he'd be in chat, and it's like, oh yeah, just ask at target player. And freaking Soul Malko just like was always there, and he's just like, yeah, you know, this just like, you know, he stays engaged, you know, he plays RCQs and he tweets and he reply guys. He's a man of the people. I love that. I can't wait to meet him one day. He even plays Commander games, so you know, he freaking played his first Commander game. I saw him post a picture of his like first Commander game or something. Guess what he had on turn 1?
Birds of Paradise.
No, a Soul Ring, dumbass. Come on.
Man.
Isn't there anything better than that? Like Soul on his first game of Commander had a Soul Ring. I had a Soul Ring on my first game of Commander. I had Gavin Verhey swung by. He Comic-Con last year, so it was a year ago. He swung by New York. And he's friends with some mutual friends of mine. So I met him for the first time.
Like me.
Yeah. I mean, including BK. Okay. You weren't in New York, so you couldn't hook this up. But
didn't come. Yep.
But we just set up. We had pizza actually. We didn't have Ponzas, but Ponzeratis, but we did have pizza, and then we posted up at a cafe in the West Village, and Gavin busted out the Warhammer decks, the Surge Foil ones, and he just like put 4 deck boxes on the table, and he's like, okay, pick your poison. And I was like, I will pick the bluest looking deck box, please and thank you. And so I like I'm not like a big Commander player, but I mean I'm not gonna freaking look Gavin in the eye and just be like, oh, stupid Commander, I hate like I wouldn't do that, right? I'm not impolite like some podcast hosts that we know.
Right.
So
we know who we're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm like vibing with I'll play some Commander, right? And so I like open up my hand. My hand is Soul Ring, Plains, Darkwater Catacombs, and my Commander is a 4 casting cost Commander, 1 UWB. And I was like, this is sick. So I just played my Commander on turn 2 with a filter land via Soul Ring, and I was like, I see why people like this stuff. Like I was like, this feels awesome.
I'm building my second Commander deck lifetime right now.
I would like Commander was kind of cool because when they added it to Magic Online in like the mid 2000s, you could just like make for fun Commander decks and just buy a bunch of bulk rares for it. And and so those were like, that was the first time I was exposed to it. It was just like early 2000s, like before anything got released. Cool. Yeah. I mean, the people who played it liked it. And I'll say this now because Mike isn't here, because Mike thinks Commander is like the plague.
And he won't listen to this.
And well, he's definitely listening to this and yelling at he's just like on the plane to Cleveland. He's like, damn you, taking over my spike. You call this spike colony? You guys are talking about Commander now. Commander did one very important thing for Magic the Gathering, is that it united all casual Magic players under the same basic rule set.
Totally.
When I was, and I'm sure you know about this, but like when I was like playing at the YMCA and the playground, like there was no way for me to like align like what was going to happen with like the other kids who played Magic. Like I'd like roll up. It's like, what do you want to do? It's like, let's play Magic. It's like, okay, let's play Magic. Like, okay, most of the kids played horrible like decks or like whatever. But like, if you played Burn on the playground, like you were like the bad guy, right? But like also if you played like Counterspell on the playground, you were like also bad. If you played Stone Rain,
that kid rolled in with his leather jacket and Switchblade, pulled out his red deck, and was just beating everybody up. And like, yeah, I mean, kids were like making up rules. There was like freaking mana drop. Like I don't even know how. Like there was like the 2 things that were completely insane. One was tap a land, find a land from your
library. Like everyone did this somehow. And the other one was just permanent Tatiova, like play a land, draw a card. Oh, and you have unlimited land drops. So it was unlimited. It was Tatiova fast bond. And everyone did this. Like multiple people have the same story. It's just like, oh yeah, we had some kids, and the way that they played Magic was like, if you played a land, you drew a card, and then you just get to keep playing lands. And it was just kind of like, and then I rolled up with 22 lands and Fireball. So
in the 90s, all the casual Magic was just bananas like that, like no rules. Like before Commander, it was like one format was just like play all lands every turn, draw up to 7 on your upkeep.
Yeah, draw to 7, like, just like Necro. Just
draw 7, play all lands. That's like, and then if you're mad scared, you're just done.
My favorite anecdote is Sam Black saying like they didn't understand, like they just made up the rules to Magic, and they were like they all took their turns simultaneously, and then like attacking players was like a negotiation because there'd be three kids playing at the table. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna attack you and you're gonna block and like whatever. And so he was like telling the story. He's like, so Sarah Angel had the text attacking does not cause Sarah Angel to tap, and he's like, well, what's the point? Why does that matter? Like we just take our combat phase at the same time. So I love that. So anyways, Commander united casual Magic under the same umbrella. And
I got another sweet. You'll like this story. This is the last story about like people's individual rules. When I worked for Dan Bach, we were selling like tons of Locust Misers and Gnat Misers. Do you know what those cards do?
No, I didn't know. I did not know there were Magic cards that said Miser in the.
It's just called Misers. Well, the Misers had an effect that would reduce your opponent's hand size. Okay, look. Gnat Miser was like a 1/1 for 1.
Ooh, I know this card.
And Locust Miser was like a 3-drop reduced by 2 or something. And we're like, why are people buying this card? It's terrible, right? It was like right after Saviors came out. And Dan comes in one day, he's like, I figured it out. I was at this other store last night, the casual store in town. And he's like, two people were playing. One guy goes, turn 1 Gnat Miser. And he's like, you have to discard a card. They were just like straight up like, oh, yeah, your hand size is 6 now.
These cards were printed in Saviors of Kamigawa. So we're talking 2005, which is like, that's, I mean, there was at least, Magic the Gathering. That's unbelievable to me because the amount of information that you need to like, okay, these people, they're like, oh, sick. New Magic set comes out. Like, this Magic set is pretty cool. It's like, I played the other two. Head over to my local shop, the casual shop. Those guys at Misty Mountain Games, they're a little bit too, they're just a little bit too spiky for me. They're kind of they like playing with them isn't fun. So I'm just gonna buy a booster, crack open a booster. It's like scroll through the comments. Gnat Miser, 1 for a 1/1. I'm already in. This is value.
What did they print?
Yeah, each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 1. That's a strict upgrade to my favorite card, Ravenous Rats. Locust Miser, 2/2. They reduced by 2. If my deck is all this, then they just never get to have any cards in their hand. And then they're like,
that's the dream. Yeah.
They like head up to the counter. It's like, do you have this card? I need 4 of each or 10 of each because my deck can just be all Gnat Miser probably. And they're like, oh, sorry, we're out. We don't have a bulk bin. You're going to have to head over to Misty Mountain Games. And they're like, oh, shoot. I hate going over there. They just like go over to Misty Mountain Games and they're just like, give me all the Gnat Misers. Give me all the Gnat Misers. Meanwhile, you're just sitting behind the counter, your leather jacket and switchblade, your lightning bolts, your bolting birds, and you're just like, sure, I think there's some in the box. There's some in the draft chaff that's like sitting around on tables. They're like, you're leaving this on tables? You're leaving Gnat Miser on the table? Do you guys know how strong this card is? It's like, man, those Misty Mountain guys think they're so competitive. They just leave Gnat Misers on the table after the draft. They're not even in their draft decks. They run home. Just demolish their little brother with their Gnat Misers. They're just like, no fair.
What a bunch of boobs.
Oh my God. So counterpoint to this. One thing that is unfortunate that I don't know because you obviously have a strong opinion on this. So what do you think because I think that one of the follies of uniting casual Magic under the umbrella of Commander, and just uniting people under like casual Magic's great, don't get me wrong. And printing. Oh, is this too political? Because you're a shop owner, I can't actually hook you on like saying something like controversial. So I'm just gonna soapbox. Some
would call Premodern a casual format, but go on.
Yeah. So this ties in. So I was walking with friend of the podcast, Jeff Ferris, and Jeff was like, yeah, I tried out this Commander game, and I put my deck together, and I get into this pod, and this guy shows up with just 100 proxies. His entire deck was proxied, and he was just like, yeah. So I just didn't like that. That was like kind of annoying, and I was just like, well, it's kind of interesting because, Wizards is just throwing all their weight behind Commander. I mean, not all their weight, but they're throwing so much weight behind Commander, and they throw too much weight, and this whole proxy culture, this whole, being cool with proxies, stuff comes around. It's like people just like don't even need to buy any cards. And, that's just kind of on them. Because there's a lot of things that are wrong with competitive culture, but like when the vibe was like roll up to FNM and play sanctioned Magic, like, you can't play proxies in sanctioned Magic. So it sold the cards, and the cards were, they weren't cheap, but they weren't like, I don't know, freaking, I don't know, Mana Crypt expensive. Like,
right.
What was $200 in the 2000? Like, I can't name a $200 card in 2005 when Natmiser was printed. Natmiser should have been $200. Thank God they printed it at Common. But like, I couldn't name $200 could have bought me a playset of Force of Wills and a playset of Underground Sea. Like, like, so, I think it's interesting. And then of course, like Euros and like whatever. So Premodern is actually the same boat. It's just kind of like, well, we're trying to grow the format and like whatever, but, and in your store, you can sell a gold bordered card, but you can't sell a proxy. And
right. I never would.
Yeah, of course. You would never sell a counterfeit, obviously. I don't really want to, counterfeits are horrible. Don't counterfeit cards. Counterfeits are dumb. Don't create counterfeits and call them proxies. Counterfeits are bullshit. But yeah, like I don't know. What's your attitude? Say what you. I'll give you the opportunity to say what you want, I guess, and not say anything that's going to get you in trouble.
Well, I don't know what we get me. I'm feel pretty good about my opinions on proxies and fake cards or whatever you want to call them. They are fake cards, and people who like proxies get really upset if you call them fake cards. But they're not real. They're not real cards. I don't have a problem with people playing them, honestly. I think like most people who play proxies wish they were real cards, and today's proxy player often is buying cards tomorrow, to put in their deck.
Right.
So
they're just trying to figure out how good Indomitable Will is before they just shell out freaking, I don't know, $80 on it or something.
For the longest time, as a store, it felt like I was expected to enforce a no proxy rule. And I guess quite possibly technically they want me to, but nowadays, if it's a sanctioned event, obviously it's got to be real cards, like a tournament or something like that. But if it's not, I don't care that much. I won't. I'm not gonna run around from game to game, make sure everybody's playing real cards.
But if you have like casual, if you have Commander Night, can people bring proxies to Commander Night?
Of course not, but I'm not going to check cards.
Right. Okay. No, I actually seriously don't know, because like here's the thing: is like a lot of people
do it. Yeah. People show up, people roll in, but nobody. I don't think there's anybody in my store that just prints a deck and shows up to play.
Yeah.
But it'll be like, a lot of it's like, my Mana Crypt's my other deck. I just want to move the damn thing.
Yeah.
And whatever, that's fine. Or like, I want to get one, and my deck really needs a Mana Crypt. Otherwise,
yeah, freaking every deck really needs a Mana Crypt.
How am I going to survive without this Mana Crypt in my deck?
You literally can't. Have you ever?
You're just
Have you ever tried to go drunk without power?
You're gonna look like an idiot.
Nobody listens to you. Like,
I always play real cards.
Can I proxy a time twister? I'm never gonna buy a time twister. Can I still proxy a time twister? Like, come on, you're not gonna expect me to buy a time twister. Well, it's so expensive.
Personally, since Magic 30 came out, I don't feel like protecting anything in the reserve list is really worth anybody's time.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. Like, print them out, play them all you want. Don't make them look like real cards.
Yeah. Well, anything could be a real card nowadays. They're gonna release a secret lair of tournament legal cards that are just basic lands with name sharpied on them.
Well, and then the rumor is you saw the playtest
the sticker thing,
playtest card.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're doing that? You know, like you think they're not gonna be like, well, let's just see if this reserve list card is gonna fly.
Well, they didn't do that. They just did that with Counterspell, though, right?
They did. They tried it out with Counterspell.
Oh, okay, so you're just like,
you think that's the only card they're ever gonna do that with?
Yeah. No? I mean, I don't think they're gonna do Guy's Cradle, but I guess you're right. That is technically not tournament legal.
They're gonna do Guy's Cradle?
No. I'm just saying, is that what you think? I mean,
yeah, I think they're gonna do cards that they can't reprint. But see, they've already tiptoed around like technically correct is the best kind of correct.
Yeah, I mean, for a while the loophole is just judge foil, right?
Yeah. Well, they actually closed that loophole even.
They did, but that was like why we have Judge Promo.
First, they did From the Vault. People complained. They closed that loophole. They did Judge Foils. People complained. They closed that loophole. Now they printed M30. People complained. They took it off. They took it offline. You know. Now they're allegedly. No, they did.
Well, they didn't they say they sold out or whatever, or they just ended the limited.
Yeah, they did.
It was like limited edition, so it was like, okay, now the limit has been reached.
Yep, they didn't say how big the limited edition is, and they didn't say how many they sold.
Okay, interesting stuff.
They very abruptly took it down. Like, I don't think and from everything I've read, it's very, very, very.
It's evident. Okay.
That it's very evident they did not sell out. They just decided to stop early.
But I can rock a gold border survival at Commander Night. That's pretty above board at this point, right?
You can. You can definitely run it at my pre-modern night. I don't know why I would get irritated at Commander players for doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyways, I mean, that's just like it's just kind of like my 2 cents, which is just kind of like, you can't just like make this all about Commander, because like you can only go to the well so much. Like, obviously you keep people hooked, they keep buying boosters, like whatever, it's like a regular thing, but like they also can't buy a boost, like, they've got their booster budget, and then you're gonna push people to the printers at a certain point. But
I tell people I'd rather if a card is still in print,
Yeah.
If they can still print a card, just use the card,
Yeah.
None of them are like Mana Crypt's the most expensive card that's cheap for cheapest version of all cards. Like, it's the most expensive card they can reprint.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's nothing else that they can reprint.
Mana Crypt's Mana Crypt's the biggest one.
That's worth more.
I mean, freaking Sol Ring could have been Mana Crypt prices. Thank God.
Yep. Luckily, they printed it 1 zillion times.
Yeah. I mean, they were like, I mean, they should just, man.
You can still get a couple bucks for one.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh well, we're a Commander podcast. We're a freaking Johnny Colony. We're Commander Colony.
Spike Colony Finance. Right here.
Spike Colony Finance. Yeah, those Force of Wills, man. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's super interesting to me. I'm glad that we had this discussion, because I think it's rare that store owners are necessarily in the mix. I just clicked.
We're the bad guys.
I just clicked into.
I also see people who are really big on proxies. They're like, they'll say like, I will never buy a real card. Like, it's ridiculous to buy cards. He's like, and with given your attitude, I would never step into your store.
Yeah.
Wow, really? You wouldn't step in my store to not buy any of the stuff that you. It's just a great take. I laugh really hard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's some of them.
I mean, it's a pretty classic, like, like you got to play Magic somewhere. Like, we have. I mean, I don't know if you guys do pay to sit, but we pay to sit in New York.
I don't.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's Madison. It's like I'm sure it's like just it's a
I
little
mean,
bit less stressful, but
I could, but I don't. My rent's not New York rent.
yeah, yeah,
If
exactly.
yeah,
But like, yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, hey, the way this works is that the commander players, like, we had a 1.5k, right? And the store rake for our cash 1.5k, like, obviously we could have worked something out if it was like store credit or whatever, but the store rake for our 1.5k for us to take over the entire store, like, so nobody can roll through and play commander, nobody can roll through and play some Lorcana games, etc.
mhm.
Was like, it was low. It was, I mean, you do the math, right? We paid 60, it was $60 a head. We priced out 1.5k. So there's not a lot left for Judge and Store Rake. And, they were doing that as a favor to us. Like, us pre-modern players are
Yeah,
pretty dependent on store owners like you, like BK, who's like willing to obviously support the format and not worry about how much rake pre-modern is going to have.
that's super nice of them to do that. Honestly, when I run my events, I cancel all my other events, and I don't feel great about it. But I also want to do a sweet pre-modern event, so
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, it
Um,
comes at a cost, exactly.
yeah,
So yeah, so there's a pretty low rake, and Bifrost was super supportive of us, and like, we need the LGS, like, we can't, like,
yeah,
the goal is to, like, the best thing for us is when we're jamming pre-modern night, uh, and we're jamming next to the commander players, and a commander player walks over and just like, oh, that's cool, you guys get to play with Guy's Cradle too. And it's like, what's this format? And they're just like, hey, that's pretty interesting. Like, maybe they don't, like, maybe they didn't grow up in the 90s playing Magic or whatever, but maybe they're down. Maybe they're down to try. Maybe they're tired of buying new cards every week.
mhm.
Not that that helps the LGS. I don't know. I'm not making a good case, I guess. Whatever. Buy
I
booster
think like
packs from BK. But yeah, if you're playing pre-modern, just be thankful that you have anywhere to play. And I guess that's why we play in bars most of the time, anyways. But alas.
makes sense.
um, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Any other cool technology? There's like, I'm like looking past the top 8, and there's like
Oh,
two.
let's talk about pre-modern. Yeah,
There's two Oath Ponzas, and there's a Dreadstill, Stifle Nut, Landstill deck, and a Madness Infestation, black green Survival Madness Infestation.
here's a
With
crazy one.
3
Dead Guy
squeeze.
Ale.
I don't. Okay.
You don't want to talk about Dead Guy Ale?
Okay. With the last, we're an hour 40 in. We have 20 minutes to talk about Basic Swamp. 20 minutes on
Pit
Dead
Rack.
Gael. Go.
Pit Rack was in ninth place, including one of my favorite cards that people are finally starting to play
Bane
in
of the
Pit
Living.
Rack. Bane of the Living.
How do you
Bane of the
ever
Living's-
have more than 3 lands in play in this deck?
I mean, a Bane for one's pretty good against a lot of decks, right? And also, you can flip it for 2 mana.
Oh, okay.
You pay 2 mana. It's
Actually, I'm kind of down. I'm kind of down for 3+2. Because when I play against Pit Rack, 22 lands, 4 Mishras, 4 Wasteland, whatever, they go Ritual, Bottomless Pit, Chain of Smog U. I'm like, okay, well, I have 0 cards, so I'll chain it back. And then we play the 0 land game, and they have they take a long time to get to extra lands. So, granted, like, I'm like a parfait, like, I'm a land tax gush replenish player. So
Yeah.
generally speaking, I don't lose to Pit Rack, but yeah, Bane of the Living, my immediate reaction is like heavy cost, but man, Ritual Bane of the Living, attack for 4 on turn 2.
It's great because if you pump too much mana into it, it kills itself.
Yeah, that's the best part.
You know what? Every time I look at a Pit Rack deck, I'm like, I cannot believe they wake up in the morning and just throw 13 swamps in their deck and expect it to roll. Can you? I mean,
It's just like
that's just maniac, right?
So
I recently
Basic
built a
Swamp
Pit
is
deck.
like an abusive partner, and Basic Swamp players are like in an abusive relationship. They're just like, I think I can fix you. I can fix you. I just know. I just need to play 13
Been
Swamps, and
there.
I just need to play 4 Wasteland, Dark Ritual. I can fix
Why
you.
is Wasteland? Why is Wasteland good in this deck? Every time I look at it, I'm like, is it
Well, because
good?
you strand the like 4 drops in their hand, and then you bottomless pit them out.
Mm, yeah, that's
Or
a.
you waste their Mishra's Factory so you can get in with yours and your Plague Spitter.
And meanwhile, you can't ever cast more than one spell in a turn.
Yes, that
Because you
too.
only have 13 swamps in here.
Yeah, that's also true. Some of your Dark Ritual is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I
Dark
don't know.
Ritual's like 4 swamps.
Snuff out is a free spell. But you do need a swamp to play. So
Dark
you can play
Ritual is
Snuff
like a
out plus
swamp.
something.
Dark Ritual is like a swamp that taps for 2 mana that you have to sacrifice right away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's Crystal Vein.
Yeah.
Doesn't count as a land drop.
But yeah, I don't know. I swear to God, like these players with their basic swamps, they're just glutton for punishment. I swear to God. I mean, grats for getting 9th place and top 8 respectively to Dead Guy L. With it doesn't get that much better. I mean, I guess it's 9 swamp, 4 caves, 3 tainted field. But Tainted Field doesn't tap for black unless you have the first swamp. And then we won't talk about how much of a hard time they have tapping for white. But
Dead Guy O, another deck that I never understand why it's 4 Wastelands.
yeah. You're down for Dark Ritual though? Otherwise you're just not a tempo deck, right? You just like don't do anything. You just like play fair.
I've been saying no Dark Ritual in this deck for longer than Fran's been playing Premodern. I'll just
Okay,
I don't want to jump on his.
Like BK, I just want to ask you a very
bandwagon.
pertinent question: is who says it louder?
He does.
Well, then I'm gonna listen to Fran then.
Right, I always let people say stuff louder.
Yeah, you're the kid at the corner of the class that like tells a joke under his breath, and the kid next to you says it out loud.
Exactly. Yeah.
That happened to me once. I was in class. This was like 10th grade too. We're like watching a French film, and they kiss on screen. I'm like, oh, they're French kissing. Kid next to me, it's like, they're French kissing. Crowd goes wild. This guy was my friend. I like looked at him. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Did you just
stole your material?
Like this, like right at like the gall. Yeah. Anyways,
how many high fives did he get?
Yeah. Just 100. Just every single. That. They lined up to high five him. Yeah. I don't know. These decks are super fair. I mean, I don't know. Dead Guy L. I mean, 4 Exalted Angel is not a bad place to be, I guess, especially if your opponent's plan is Savannah Lions. Although I think they lost to Savannah Lions in the top round of 8, so never mind.
Well, I wouldn't want to play against a bunch of small creatures with this deck.
I mean, they found a way, man.
Like they're pretty. I mean, you're pretty much on Exalted Angel or nothing with Dead Guy Ale against something like that. It seems like, right? Because what else are you doing?
You're gonna wasteland their gemstone mine.
Like your answers are like three times more expensive than all their threats, and they play Mox Diamond to get a whole bunch of stuff out. I mean, I guess you have Dark Ritual. That's like your own Mox Diamond.
Yeah.
But then Tuco Shade's kind of embarrassing against the Savannah Lions, right?
Yeah, it's fine. You just gotta pay mana every turn. Blocks for days. That's card advantage. I mean, I don't know. I just like these black cards just aren't good, right? Dark Ritual is one of the most powerful black cards ever printed. Like, what's the most powerful card in Magic that's black and legal and legacy, and legacy and pre-modern, right?
Black and like duress.
I mean, it's probably duress, right? But
it probably is duress.
But like duress does not. I mean, duress does kind of ask you to be quite a black deck because you need to play it on turn 1. It helps to play it on turn 1. But like Dark Ritual, like as an all timer, right? I mean, Dark Ritual was always broken because it's like regrowth, right? Regrowth is restricted, but that's because you regrowth targeting ancestral recall. It's like Dark Ritual was only ever broken. Like Dark Ritual was broken in friggin' Pauper, but because of the stuff that enables. But I mean,
I don't think there's zero place for Dark Ritual in Premodern. I just think if you're Value Town, which that guy clearly is, like, why are you
Maybe it's just the 3
sacrificing
gears.
your
Maybe a dead
like one
guy
of those?
has gear 1, Dark Ritual, Hypnotic Spectre, and then gear 2 is just your now really bad value deck because you have 4 horrible cards in your deck.
Like, what if it was just 4 more lands, right?
I mean,
Pretty good.
yeah. I mean, that's what the Discord is all about. Freaking value black white control. Yeah. I mean, we're a far cry from freaking sinkhole, like sinkhole him to Torok dead guy. I mean, like, I guess
This is like the classic Handerlander. That's what we used to call decks like this back in the day. Like that was almost always a really bad place to be. You don't want to be discard and land destruction don't work well together.
Yeah.
If you make them discard a bunch of cards, their lands become useless because they don't get to play them. And if you destroy a bunch of their lands, their spells become useless because they can't play them, right?
Well,
so
I mean, they had
doing
Dark
both
Confidant, so
yeah,
it just didn't matter at that point.
Yeah.
And also,
That's
him is random discard, right? So actually, him was land destruction if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, him's just a great card.
Yeah. No, I got you. I
turning the variance way up on your opponent every time.
I wouldn't duress sinkhole, but I am down to him sinkhole. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you like these black decks? Are you feeling like there's just untapped potential out of Basic Swamp, or do you feel like it's rightfully in last place?
So a couple of weeks ago, a good friend of mine wanted to play Premodern, and I asked him what he wanted to play, and he sent me a Pit Rack deck, and I'm like, I'm not going to talk yet. I'll play in Pit Rack because you're excited about this. So I just worked on Pit Rack a little bit, and I don't know. I took out. I'm trying to remember what I left. Dark Ritual in. I left the pits and I left the racks in. I'm like, these are the things I can't take out because this is like the deck. But I messed around with a bunch of other stuff in it, and I thought it was pretty playable against the stuff I was playing against. It definitely did some work. I added I tried like what we did Plague Spitter and Skittering Scourge. I think Skittering Scourge is an awesome
I'm down with Skittering Scourge. Did you have a little Chimeric Idol in there and get a stew?
Yeah, I did. I threw Chimeric Idol into the deck too. Yeah, I had Scourge and Idol.
Ritual, Chimeric Idol, Skittering Scourge. Why do we even have to play discard spells? Like, let's just go.
Exactly. And then, but I also took the Wastelands out.
Yeah.
And I just put in like, I took the Wastelands out, and I think I put 2 Kowal pits in, and maybe 2 swamps, I guess, or something. I don't know, but that seemed like better.
Seemed playable.
Left Mishras in because those are great.
Okay. Well, shout out to
I took the scrolls out too.
Yeah, those
like, I don't know.
Those are
I don't want to waste.
Kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that they're always live, but they're definitely awkward.
Rack is a clock, Rack kills people.
I mean, Rack kills people approximately as fast as Chimeric Idol, so
why not both?
Yeah, I see it. I see the vision. Okay, well, big maybe, I guess. I am actually a super big fan of he's Ubichi on Magic Online. He's been playing 4 Negator, 4 Drinker of Sorrow, I think it's called.
Oh, wow.
Online. So the 8 Negator deck.
That's a blast.
And he's been ritualing those out. And do you know what's tying the entire room together is Power Matrix.
Ooh.
So for those of you who don't know, Power Matrix is a 4-cost artifact that taps to give target creature +1/+1 flying, first strike, and trample. And
haste, right?
I don't. There's no way it gives haste. There's no freaking way. The card's actually good if it gives haste.
No, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, first strike, flying, and trample. So it's like an equipment. It's like an equipment, sort of situation. But it just
first strike, flample.
Yeah, it floats all your negatory guys over the battlefield in for 6. It hits.
This was the best card you could open in Mercadian Mass Limited.
Oh,
It was
no
the best.
doubt.
It was the hands down best rare in the set.
Oh yeah, I freaking believe
It's
you.
$9. This card's $9 now.
Holy, yeah, you're right. MTG Finance.
That's
I guess
bananas.
I mean, snap up your power matrices now. This card is actually sick. So he shared the list, and that's everyone's first question. Is just like, power matrix is that good? It's like, it's actually sweet because
it's equipment.
It's equipment,
right?
And it's super good because it gasses up. So 2 core synergies going on. He was running Sarcomancy to sacrifice to his Drinker. Is it Drinker of Sorrow?
Drinker of Sorrow, yeah.
Yeah, Drinker of Sorrow, which is a 5/3. It's a mini negator. When it deals combat damage, sacrifice a permanent. It doesn't have trample. Can't block. So he's sacrificing his Sarcomancy and Ravenous Rats to Drinker of Sorrow. I think the Ravenous Rats I could live without. And he was like powering everything out with Ritual. And I'm like, dude, you can power stuff out with Ritual. You can also power all this stuff out with Ancient Tomb. Power Matrix is 4 colorless. Negator, Drinker of Sorrow is 2 and a black. Like, with 4 Ritual and 4 Ancient Tomb, you can actually cast all this stuff ahead of schedule pretty consistently. Yeah. And if you're casting stuff ahead of schedule, then all of a sudden I am interested in Wastelands and whatever. This deck also makes good use of Factory. So talking about the basic swamp deck that I'm the most hyped about, it has to be Ubichi, Steven, 8 Negator. Obviously it's a mono black deck, so every time I've played him, I just put Opalescence and Parallax Wave in play, and he can't do anything about it. But
he doesn't make you discard him.
Well,
we know how that works.
But yeah, so super sick deck. I noticed greater than, so he was playing it, and then
does he play Unearth?
Unearth is sick, dude. Unearth is actually underrated. Unearth should be like an value.
I think
deck.
Unearth is the key to Dark Ritual in these decks.
Oh,
because like if you just have enough 3-drops that you ritual out, and then they kill them, and then you get to like, it's basically another Dark Ritual
because
creature, only it's only 1 card, and you still save the 2 mana.
Yeah, and you're kind of a super good. I mean, as long as you don't, if you're not dependent on BB1 out of Hypnotic Spectre, then your Wastelands or Rishon and Port, like whatever, and then they actually start making sense. So
also these black decks should just play for Negator, man. Like I think
oh, I love it. I love that
because let's face it, Swamp players, real talk, you're all gonna lose to the mountains anyway.
Yeah,
like you're never beating that red deck, even if you don't play the Negator. Red deck's still gonna run you over. Like there's nothing you can do about it. So you just like suck it up. Bring in some Bottle Gnomes for game 2 and 3. And,
Bottle Gnomes, Ritual Bottle Gnomes, go.
Ritual Bottle Gnomes, nice Jackal Pup.
Oh my god.
Proceed. Oh, bolted. Oh, game 3.
yeah. Okay, well that's sick. I actually like where this is going. I don't know about
sorry.
I don't know about Thrashing Wumpus though, but I'm down for
Thrashing Wumpus is a banger. That guy is amazing.
How did you do with that deck?
Terrible.
Okay.
But that wasn't Thrashing Wumpus' fault. That was more the rest of the deck. Thrashing Wumpus is a deceptively more powerful card than it looks. Because, yes, it can be bolted, right? It's a 3/3 for 5. But think about, like, Goblins and Elves and how they can't ever do anything.
I like it better than Plague Spitter. I like it way better than Plague Spitter, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because Plague Spitter doesn't even really catch goblins for the most part, and then Elves, like,
against decks that it doesn't do anything against, it's still like hits for 5 to 7 every turn. Yeah. Because you can like
attack, and then you get a blaze.
Twice,
yeah.
And then activate twice on their turn. And then you can you just expel them out later.
Yeah.
He's like honestly a pretty fast clock. Like when it was in standard, it was like a constant overperformer.
Okay. So you're going back to the abusive partner. You're just like, basic swamp. I'm not giving up on you. I still think I can fix you.
I want to make all the cards work.
Yeah.
That's just my Magic DNA.
Yeah.
is trying to prove viability.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You said it yourself. You're like in our Discord, and you're like, you guys must think I'm shit. It's like I have a higher purpose to serve. Freaking pre-modern grinders, you're out here maximizing your win rates, trying to get plus EV on your cash tournaments. I'm in the lab. I'm thrashing my Wumpus. I'm
Exactly.
I'm pit racking with Chimeric Idol.
You make me sound pretty cool.
I mean, you're the guest. You're the guest. How rude would it be if I was just like, well, you're right. Actually, you do suck.
I mean, what's the end goal of becoming the best pre-modern player in the world?
Freaking brags, dude. Sick brags.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you, since you're not the best pre-modern player in the world, I'm just going to explain to you. One time I saw Rich Shea at a social function, and he just unloaded that one on the crowd, and they just dropped to their knees and wept for they were in the presence of the master. No, I mean, like, I'm never going to be better than Rich. Like, Rich is so unbelievable. Like, I'm actually down to just give up and brew bad decks because, like, what's the point? Like, he's just better than you. Like, he just is. Like, Rich is better than you playing at playing bad decks. Like, he's making, like, I don't know. I would have never gotten half as far as he did playing freaking Gush, Scroll Rack, Gaia's Blessing, Armageddon. Like, his deck has no card advantage. It's just Gush and Sylvan Library. Or what, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Oath is
his
card
new
advantage.
one. Yeah, his new one. I just don't even know. I feel like if the deck list is face up, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, how are people using it? Like,
he hasn't made it very far in elimination rounds, right?
Yeah, that's true. Because the deck list
I feel
is
like
face up.
If you don't know what's going on, it's a little different with that kind of deck. I don't know.
It's possible, but he's still honing. I mean, he's still making it better, though.
Yeah, and more power to him. I love it. I love brewing with Rich, and I love talking to Rich about his brews. And I think
it's actually kind of a shame that like we don't have like camera matches going on all the time, like with Rich, because like I mean I don't know, it's just special, you know. That's why
Rich will play a camera match with anybody anytime. That is Rich's. Rich is in pre-modern online play almost daily.
Yeah,
looking for a game.
So that's nice, but I'm talking like you know, with the pressure on, you know.
Oh yeah.
Because like I think that like this. Okay, you asked a question. Why do you want to be the best pre-modern player? Because I want to be like Rich. Like when I watch him play, it's inspiring. Like it makes me feel like, you know, it makes me feel like I'm learning stuff. Like I'm improving. Like watching him improves my mindset. Because like so actually, man, I love this topic because this is actually getting pretty deep. 2 hours in, we always get to the good stuff 2 hours in. So one of the big questions is like, why play pre-modern, right? There's like no stakes. There's like, why take it competitive? Like, why are you playing this casual format competitively? Like I don't gain like the intellectual stimulation from most contemporary formats. Like contemporary limited is a different thing, and limit is kind of a different beast. But like I used to play modern, and I brewed a couple of interesting and fun modern decks, and those kind of could wedge in and kind of compete and like whatever. And you know, and I know that people still brew in modern, like, you know, look at Aspiring Spike or whatever, but like just the way that the games play out, like the learning experience, it just feels different. Like to me, I feel like pre-modern improves your like fundamental understanding of how like Magic the Gathering works. And like if you just like play a game and like get Fable of the Mirror Breaker, or like, I mean, you can learn a lot playing standard, and you like play this like grindy mid-range mirror, and you're just like learning about value and like whatever, but it's like value with these like giant haymakers. Like you're just like, I draw 5 cards and Wrath or like Planeswalker uptick, you know, this thing, and you're like, I'm return my Archangel of Wrath and put 5 3/3s onto the battlefield after you. Like, I mean, it was sick. Like the freaking black-green in Worlds, it was black-green mid-range. It was just freaking the Rock and Standard versus Reed Duke's like Domain ramp deck. And it was like classic, right? It was like the Rock has to take an as aggressive and disruptive of a stance as possible against Domain, or Domain just like runs it out and ramps it out. But then sometimes they lose to their mana because they don't hit the 7th mana. Anyways, that stuff's all interesting, but it's very, very hard to like play a match of Magic and like leave feeling like you've improved, or you're gonna like try something different, or you're gonna learn. And then it's also just very satisfying to learn and apply. So like when I'm like, oh, now I know how to play this matchup. So I've talked about this a couple of times in the cast, but like the Replenish versus Blue-Red Tinker matchup was super interesting. And I play tested it, and I tried like 4 different sideboard strategies until I found the sideboard strategy that worked. And like that's just super gratifying to just be like, okay, like I'm gonna play this matchup. You know, the pieces are predictable. The gameplay is balanced. Like I'm not gonna get blown out. We're both like, so whoever brings the best strategy wins. And Rich brings the best strategy to every match of Magic he plays. And when he showcases that, you know, he's facing against very powerful resistance. He's giving his best resistance. Like I watch that and I'm just like, I'm blown away. I'm just like, this is just so fun. Like this is like fun. It's engaging. And you do have to, you know, you can't be like brewing. You can't just be like stumbling over your deck having weird cards in those scenarios. Like, you know, you really need both players to play, you know, relatively strong decks, you know, in that match. Like you watch Tom against Rich, you know, it's like the same thing. Both players are just like are playing their hearts out, and you gain some like the stupid Elves game. Like we talked at length about this Elves game. Like I want to show people how to beat Burn with Elves, and I want to show people how to beat Elves with Burn. You know, like I want you know why I want to be the best. I want to play a deck that Pablo Suarez thinks that he never loses to, and I want to beat him. The same thing with Rich. Rich is just like out here. He's like, oh, you know, I never lose to the Rock. Like, you know, freaking beat him with the Rock. Imagine how. Yeah,
I want to beat him with the Rock so bad.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I want to beat him with Mox Diamond so bad. Right. I want to beat him with Korean Dryad so bad. So like, that's what's motivating me. It's just kind of like it's just like the ultimate. Like it's just so engaging.
If I would have shot called you at all for this or for the Fall Brawl, it would have been playing. I thought about playing my Living Wish Rock deck because why would that be embarrassing? You know, like I would probably. I was just gonna try to lay a beat more than what it was. More like let's beat him with something that he does not think he can lose to. You know?
You're just gonna like living wish for Withered Wretch, which like I've said 100 times, like Withered Wretch is just such an embarrassing card, and then ride it to victory. That was the plan. I think you might have been dead before that Withered Wretch hit the table with mana open.
Your freaking draws, man! Like turn 3.
True.
Go off every game.
But yeah, I mean that's why I want to be the best, because it's just like it's just like so. I mean, like look at Mike.
Yeah. It is a format where it's more like the players playing the cards rather than the cards playing. You know, we're just presenting powerful. Like the cards kind of play themselves to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, you get into a sub game, right? Like you do get into.
It is very challenging to play Modern Magic.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say it's not, but like the swings are pretty extreme.
Yeah. I mean, Reed Duke, you know, amazing player, and it's the same thing. But you know, it's kind of cool having our small pond. Like, I'm just not a player who would be. I mean, if in contemporary Magic, I wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't be in a streamed showcase. You know, I wouldn't anything. I would just be like, you know, Mr. like scary F&M guy. You know. I'd be a Mr. 3-0 at F&M, and like, you know,
I mean, you would get regional qualifiers and stuff. Like,
but I wouldn't be like
probably hit the Pro Tour with work.
Yeah, with some dedication, obviously.
But if you put the work in that you put into Premodern into like regular Magic, you would succeed.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I feel that too, because I think that it pays off. But maybe it doesn't. I mean, part of the reason I put the work in I do is because every ounce of like commitment that I have to Premodern, I just get paid back for. Like, I just like, I don't know. It's just like sweet, you know, and like it's the sandbox. Like, you know, I added a couple lands to my Replenish deck. I added Mox Diamond to Replenish deck. It's like immediately, like I'm just like doing these things, and like I'm just getting immediate positive feedback. I mean, it's kind of slow because it takes a while to find a match and whatever. But like,
I gotta put some Premodern decks in Reed Duke's hands when he's in town for CubeCon.
Oh, absolutely.
I bet he'd totally dig it.
So I think he would. He'd love
I already
it
told myself I'm gonna try not to push Premodern too much at CubeCon, but like I don't know. Dom Harvey's like, hey, I'm getting a day early. Do you want to jam some games?
Yeah.
Like,
well, he's already in because he was gonna go.
He's already in, but he was more like, hey, he's gonna be Premodern. Like he literally.
Well, Reed Duke rolls around for a Monday Night Legacy here, and I'm like begging like, you know, Jeff Ferris and Roland and the guys to like just like throw down some Premodern in between rounds of the Reed. So
He loves Value Town decks so much that like I can't imagine him not like enjoying playing the format because
Yeah,
there's so
no
much play
doubt.
to it.
Just give him the rock. Just like give him an underpowered deck. He'd make it sing.
Reed Duke on the rock versus Rich on Parfait. Go.
It's gonna be Reed. It's gonna be Reed 100%. Because rock is already favored, like on balance. And even though Rich made really great adjustments and he made really good and smart adjustments and he played spectacularly and got a good amount of luck. But Rock's fair. I think what would be more interesting is give Reed Dead Guile or like I don't know a deck that doesn't contain Pernicious Deed, right? Because like you have to imagine like oh man, let's just showcase this.
If Rich knows he's going against a rock and optimizes the deck, the 3 or 4, he tweaks the 3 or 4 cards.
No. PSS
better
list.
Against rock.
PSS list.
What?
Yeah. PSS list.
I don't know.
Yeah. We're giving Reed PSS Metelsky's rock and Rich gets to play it. I'll pay money for that. I got recently laid off
live on pay-per-view.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'd play money for Reed's appearance fee.
I don't have a job and I'd pay big money for that.
No, that's what I'm saying. I got laid off. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's sick. We'll hook him. I mean, like, you know, we'll just like LSV would be a great get, but I don't know too many players in Denver. So and he's very competitive. Like he's mentioned I guess
Connor Abbott Brown's out there.
Okay.
They're trying to start up a scene in Colorado. I know that.
Okay, I mean, if they do it and they can make the tournament sweaty enough for LSV, I'm sure he'd be interesting to come through because he's been saying that he loves like the deck picks and whatever. So yeah. But man, 2 hours and 7 minutes. You were a worthy guest host. I don't know. Michael J might still be in Cleveland next week.
How many Mox Diamonds do you think he's found so far? Let's text him. We'll get a live Mox Diamond report.
I'll let my cat in to eat some food.
He would have posted. He would have
taken a photo right away. Yeah. That's right. We'll have to have him right into the hosts. But yeah, BK, it's been a pleasure. Shout out to Misty Mountain Games. I don't know if you want to plug any coolness.
CubeCon happened at the end of October or weekend of the 21st. It's going to be awesome. So there'll be lots of great coverage on it, and it's the limited of pre-modern. Honestly, like it's like Cube is such a great.
It's the pre-modern of limited.
The pre-modern of limited, yeah.
I mean, Cube freaking rules. I absolutely agree. Yeah, and it looked like it was an insane blast. I guess if you don't know this already, they have an app that sets your pods up. You can do ranked choice voting on the cubes that you want to play. Jeff,
you should come. You're unemployed.
I need.
You got time to burn.
I don't even have PTO anymore. I don't have PTO anymore, BK.
Well, yeah, you don't have to take off for anything either. The world is your oyster. You can just run out and play cube conventions.
Yeah, I mean, freaking old border foil cube. Like, I'd be salivating over that. But yeah, it's the weekend of the 21st.
Hoyp has a pre-modern cube there too.
Oh, I actually, believe this or not, I have no interest in pre-modern cube. Like, I have no good memories of playing limited.
I've assembled card for card the MTGO Vintage Cube.
Oh, I mean, that's sick.
Yeah.
That's like which
is like the best cube that's been done.
It is a great cube. I mean, look, you don't like it. Yeah, it's just a wife point situation. Like, you know,
okay.
Like it's I mean,
you should be able to earn so many life points being unemployed.
Yeah,
just bank them, right?
Yeah, that's generally how it goes. No, I mean, I hope to make it out. It probably won't be this year, but it'll be eventually. I mean, I don't know. What would you rather have me at? The freaking Midwest Premodern Champs or CubeCon?
The
Premodern Champs. Yeah, obviously Premodern Champs. Like, I'm not going to go to Madison twice in 1 year. I'm not going to go to Madison twice in 5 years, honestly. I mean, I hope I go twice in 5 years, but like, you know, it's a harder sell than Boston. Like, if LobsterCon was in San Francisco, it's like I probably wouldn't go. So it's kind of tough. But you know, even Eternal Weekend, Pittsburgh, like I'm not driving 6 hours, I'm flying. And if I'm flying, then big yikes. But you know, one of these days, I mean, flights to Madison are super cheap for me, so All
They
right.
are?
They don't look bad.
Oh, okay.
New York to
Everybody always
Madison.
complains about flying to Madison.
I mean, I guess I normally pay $500 to freaking fly anywhere because of because my family lives on the whatever. But like, yeah, if
That's
I
good.
book in advance, it's like $200. I don't know if that's Spirit though. Is it Spirit? Let's see. No, United. $200 round trip, no carry on. You want to carry on? That'll be $25, $30, but that's totally fine. I mean, it's no Nashville. It costs like $100 to fly to Nashville from New York. That freaking rules.
Oh man, you should have went to their
No, I
pre-modern
dude, their pre-modern thing. I wanted to so bad, but we were like just
I
in Nashville. Like I don't even have to use wife points on Nashville because like we love hanging out there. So
well, if you love Nashville, you'd love Madison too. You should just come out and
you don't have?
hang here.
Do you have raging bachelor parties in Madison downtown?
No,
I'm just kidding. That's not the
is
reason
that
why
what
I
you
like
do?
Nashville.
You go to Nashville and crash bachelorette parties.
No, but
That's
it is mind blowing how crazy the bachelorette scene is there. Like I don't understand it. No, I hang out with my cool like coffee shop friends. I used to work in the coffee industry, so I hang out with them and do like cool, whatever. There's like that cool dive bar. Like you eat the food, you just like hang out. Like we got a Airbnb with a pool. It was just like the perfect like minor getaway. But I'm down. I mean, Madison in the summer I know is beautiful, and you get to see Flint sometimes because he goes out to most of them.
yeah.
So
Too late for our event though.
yeah. Well, that was incidental.
Fran
but-
Fran enjoyed Madison more than NYC.
oh, but
If you
that's that's just because New York's Manhattan freaking blows, and then it's like you have to.
There
like,
was also like an air emergency.
yeah. If you wanna come hang in New York City, you just hang out with our crew that's like in Brooklyn and just stay in Brooklyn. But yeah, I still have to battle battle Sam Black. It's like big goal of mine. Like I won't
did have
win,
my best.
but I'll,
I had my best meal in Brooklyn when I was in New York.
yeah, Laser Wolf.
Laser Wolf.
Freaking believe it.
Shout out to Laser Wolf. I'll shout out to Laser Wolf.
All right, good shout out. This has been Spike Colony 17. This episode was a banger. I love this conversation. It was great having you on, BK. We're just gonna have to do this again, and then we'll have to do it with Mike too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell him I'm coming though. I'll just stop in.
Spring it on him. He
Mystery guest
shows up on the whereby room, and he's like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "Well, actually,
BK.
Mike, you're our guest, and BK's the new co-host."
I loved the Landy Ho episode too. He was great.
Oh, Land just freaking rules. Anyways, I'm sure we could talk for more hours. Yeah, I don't know if Mike's still in Cleveland. Maybe we'll see you again next week, and hopefully with some other cast joining us. But until then, love Spike Colony.
Love Mike. Love Spike Colony.